Hey, everybody, welcome back to Inside the Pressbox, where you get to talk to us. Yes, the staff, editors, writers, and whatever else you want to call us at sportsnaut.com. I am Scott Gulbransen, your host, along with if you're watching us on the video, right, you're going to my left, which is Matt Johnson. He is a NFL writer and editor. Also, something of a savant, I think we think. Is that what we're calling you now? What are we calling you?
I will accept all titles.
Okay, you'll do that. Down below me here in the Brady Bunch Square is Ryan Dyrud. He's the founder of the Los Angeles Football Network, which is part of the Sportsnaut and Publisher Desk family. Ryan joins us from Los Angeles, where it is a lot warmer than the rest of us. Ryan, thanks for being back with us here on the Press Box.
Of course, warmer today. It's been rainy the last few days and in the 40s. So we're going to hit 50, I think, today in sunshine. So welcome back to nice weather in LA.
Yes, you can blame it all on El Nino, right? And from my California days, I always liked El Nino because it was always a really wet winter, and it kind of living in California, winter doesn't really exist as much as it does for the rest of the country, so it felt more like winter. Yeah. And then our editor extraordinaire, of course, now is Jason Burgos. He joins us as well from the East Coast, so he's the opposite of where Ryan is, right, Jason?
Yeah, and we don't have any El Nino as Chris Farley once defined as the Nino. We're cloudy over here, and I will say I am not taking all titles as Matt does. Matt's a little bit more flexible.
I love it. Some of us are more selective than others, and that's okay. All right. Well, the discussion for today inside the press box was we're coming off a weekend. We saw the NBA All-Star game. The NBA All-Star game everyone that you see covering the game, a lot of fan feedback was negative, that the game was just not anything to be excited about. Of course, the NBA All-Star game has changed over the years. They've made rule changes. This year they had an electric glass or plexiglass court. I forgot what it was made out of, which was actually kind of interesting. But really, if that's the biggest thing you have going, is it really worth watching? Well, the ratings came in this week, and surprisingly, for the first time in 6 years, there's been a rating decline for the NBA All-Star game. This year bucks that trend despite all of the coverage and really the feedback on it being very negative. So we're going to talk about that, as well as talk about some of the competitions during the All-Star game weekend and the male versus female matchup they brought in, right? Which was Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu in the first head-to-head three-point contest against man and woman WNBA versus NBA. So we're going to get all into that over the next few minutes and talk about that. So I'm going to start with you, Jason, and just talk about the NBA All-Star game. I think you look at All-Star games overall, and maybe because I'm a little bit older than all of you guys, I remember when All-Star games were actually a pretty big deal and they were fun to watch. They were competitive. That's changed over time. NFL got rid of theirs. It's now a flag football game. The NBA's is obviously much more about the weekend and all the other activities. The only one that seems to remain, NHL, I think, has actually done a good job, I have to say, of trying to kind of reinvent it. But Major League Baseball is really the only All-Star game now that actually, to me, means something because there's World Series home field advantage at it. But when you look at the NBA, Jason, for you watching it, what do you think of it? And what is the NBA doing wrong, or is there something that they need to change in order to make it more popular and more enjoyable for fans?
I'm going to go head out into my porch and just be the old man and tell everybody to get off my grass because it's trash. It's just the NBA All-Star game is washed. You know where I saw the best All-Star game highlights, Scott, for this weekend? It was All-Star game highlights on social of old All-Star games. It wasn't even this one. They were better. You know what? Also, this All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game, has become like the Fast and the Furious in that the freaking core and the special effects are the best part of the movie. There's no good acting here. It's just terrible. It's so bad. I don't care for it anymore. And it is nothing that's going to change. Like Matt did a great story on Sportsnaut this week. The players want to get paid more to do their job at the All-Star game and put on a show for the fans. This is what it's for. They don't care about the fans. They're business now. Nothing's going to change. It's a mess, and I'm just not going to watch it.
Yeah, it's interesting and a good point, Matt. Talk about that. Talk about your story and that idea. Because, listen, All-Star games, I think a lot of times what I've seen from players, not necessarily the NBA, but in other leagues, whether it's hockey, baseball, football, even the football, the new format at the Pro Bowl has been the players love it. It's their opportunity to kind of interact with fans in a controlled environment that's a little more than just autograph hounds trying to get, their signature for money. Talk about that though, and the difference in what we're seeing in the NBA and the attitude of the players when it comes to the game.
Yeah, you talk about effort level. And one thing people like to point back to is the 2020 All-Star game, which was really what was it. But look at the circumstances behind that. First year they had the Elam ending, which again made it, because first time anything is tried, it's more exciting. Players are interested in it, so that went well. But that was also the year that Kobe Bryant died, so players had much more motivation to play in Kobe's honor. And once you took that away, look at 2019, look at 2021, 2022, 2023. It's the same no effort level. You have Anthony Edwards admitting, yeah, I'm not really putting any effort into this. You have other players admitting, it just doesn't mean that much to me. So, yeah, this is a fan-friendly event. But, yeah, if you're a player and, as I said, they're making $40, $50 million a year. But, hey, we want that extra $150K just to, give you D- or C- effort, which, for the fans' perspective, very frustrating. And the one thing I will say, because I live in Indianapolis, so obviously, this was big for the city.
Big basketball.
It didn't help that we had snow come out of nowhere and just ruin the experience for every NBA star who came here. But that's also what happens when you come to the Midwest. It was 50s all week, and then literally the day the players showed up, it was snow.
Yeah, so maybe they weren't excited. Maybe they need to do what the Super Bowl does and just have it in warm weather clients, even though it's an indoor game. Ryan, I'll ask you this too, because Matt brings up a good point, which is, this idea that they would have more desire and want to play harder and do this because of the money or not because of the money, but just because it's something they have to do. I find this problem, and with all due respect to NBA fans, I find this a problem with the NBA in the regular season period. Like I can't watch the NBA. I grew up watching the NBA. I go so far back in the NBA, and you want to talk about Jason being the old man on the porch. I was a kid in Kansas City when the Kings were there, and I watched the NBA as a kid, right? So I grew up before the NBA was really, you had to watch the playoff games after the late local news. That's how unpopular the NBA was. But man, they would have high scoring. So defense was a little bit loose, but it was a run and gun league. It was very exciting. Now with the load management and all this kind of stuff, Ryan, and you've seen that obviously in Los Angeles with the Lakers and LeBron, it sort of, to me, fits in with how the NBA is overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's it's tough. I think too, when you look at the All-Star game and fans, obviously what's hard about the NBA is it's such a star-driven league. I mean, every league is driven by stars, but the NFL, because there's so many more players and parity, you have other storylines. The NHL even, is more of I think, a rabid fan base. It's smaller, but it's more, fans really diving into the game of hockey and knowing those storylines and having some national appeal. MLB obviously is the historical thing. And again, so many players. So I don't know if this would work necessarily, but I think one of the big problems with the All-Star game is when you look at the All-Star rosters, it's the same players every year, given what? 1 to 2 different players that kind of step in every year, but LeBron's in every year, Steph's in every year. Now we're going to have Joker, Giannis, and others that have been in the same guys every year. When you do it every year, I think there's just no excitement around it. Whereas if you're a rookie or a second-year player that gets to be in that All-Star game the first time, that might drive some effort level up. So I don't know if there's a way the NBA can do it where, hey, the All-Stars are still the All-Stars. They get their accolades that goes on their Hall of Fame plaque. But for the actual game, because they've done this before, right? Like rookies versus the world or whatever, like USA rookies versus world rookies. That might help the effort level. But again, I just don't even know if fans would like that because it's a star-driven league. Fans want to see Steph and LeBron. But I don't think Steph and LeBron want to play in the game. So it's a crossroads that I don't know if you'll ever fix. Maybe they start playing with that new Wilson airless ball. Maybe that helps. I don't know. But I don't know how you fix this thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because, listen, it doesn't matter what league you're talking about. This game is just a big money maker, right? Whether it's the TV, whether it's the tickets, whether it's souvenir, all that kind of stuff. It's for fans, right? It's for fans to spend money. So I get it. So I don't think it's going to go away. But I agree with something you just said, Ryan, which is the idea that, you know what, just get rid of the game. Name people an all-star. Hey, you're at midseason. These are the guys who are all-stars, and do something different because it clearly, even though the ratings went up this year, 5.5 million. I mean, there's some Thursday night football games that are doubling that up, and they're bad matchups. So the NBA, despite the money they're getting for their TV rights, I think they're kind of teetering on a point where they're becoming less relevant. I know it sounds crazy to basketball fans out there, but one of the other things too that they've really tried to do, and as I said, I credited the NHL earlier for doing more with skills competitions, and they kind of mix it up and do things differently. And of course, a very different sport. But when basketball, Jason, I'll come back to you because we talked about this before we went on the air, which is the 3-point contest, the dunk contest. I remember when the dunk contest was a big deal. For example, my guy Isaiah Ryder Jr. from my alma mater, UNLV, when he won it as part of the Timberwolves, those dunks and the innovation at that time was a big deal. Now it seems to be like, big deal. What do you think of those competitions? Can the NBA do anything different, or are they kind of stuck in a rut they can't get out of?
Well, I mean, the athletes aren't interested, especially like the skills competition. You can't do much for that. But honestly, I'm for a reorganization. The slam dunk has been the main event. It doesn't need to be the main event anymore. There's no stars in it. Going to Ryan's point, it's about stars. People want stars. There's no stars in it. The guy who won isn't even in the league. He's like in the G League or whatever. Like it has lost it. You got people like Gary Payton and Mitch Richmond as judges. Who thinks of Gary Payton when they're thinking about dunks? I'm thinking about defense when I think of Gary Payton. It just makes no sense. They look bored. Let's make the 3-point competition main event. It gets the stars. It's the thing that people care about and try hard for. And let's be real. Everybody shoots threes now. The whole league is about threes. The dunks isn't sexy. It's about shooting 85-foot 3-pointers. Let's just make the 3-pointer the main event and go with that, because at least you'll have the stars.
It's a great point, because the league it's not a league where you earn it in the paint. There's no Joe Dumars. There's no any of those guys, Hakeem Olajuwon. It's a different game, right? So you have people like Steph Curry, who I want to talk about next, because Steph Curry in the 3-point contest this year took on WNBA star Sabrina Ionescu and beat her. And here's the thing with this one, and I want to say it up front before anybody gets upset at me. And that is, I respect the hell out of all WNBA players. I do not like the product. I do not watch it. And NBA fans in general, not all of you, but majority of folks watch the NBA do not watch the WNBA. It's just true. It's a whole different fan base, which is great. And it's growing, so good for the WNBA. So I'm trying this idea of man versus woman. Was it that, or was it really just the NBA trying to get coverage of the WNBA at a time when they could promote one of their best players? I don't know. I just didn't think it worked, because either way, it becomes then the battle of the sexes thing. And I don't know if is that something we want to have? Do we want to really compare NBA players to WNBA players? Because maybe in 3-point shooting, you can get somewhat close with some folks, but overall, there's just no comparison. It's a different type of game. Ryan, what do you think of that and kind of how they approach this?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. Why not? It was another, I think, it just goes in line. I mean, the WNBA is a subsidized league of the NBA, right? So it's kind of the NBA toes along the WNBA and kind of, is trying to push viewership there. And this was an easy way to do that. And, you get some of maybe those crossover fans that have never watched and like, oh man, she can really shoot. Like maybe this is a league I need to check out and exciting. So I thought it was a fun event. It probably could have been covered differently a little bit. I know there's been a lot of chatter. Sue Bird came out and said, you need, a woman on the desk, at least storytelling back there during the actual contest. There's been chatter about whether she should have shot from the women's 3-point line versus the men's. There's things that could have been done differently, but overall, from my vantage point, I thought it was, it was fun. It looked like it was all, and everyone there had fun with it. And if it brings some eyeballs to the WNBA, if someone who's never watched, then I think it's a win for what they were trying to do. Whether it was a true fair competition, that's a different conversation, obviously.
Yeah. And Matt, what about your point of view on this? Because it's to Ryan's point, you get kind of the cross promotion. Listen, all sports is entertainment. It's going to have a massive marketing piece to it. But the idea of pitting Steph Curry, who to me, you can argue best shooter in the history of the NBA. I know we can get into a long argument on that, but nonetheless, the guy's incredible. Pairing him against, is that really how you want to showcase your other product in the WNBA, which has a whole different flair to it and a different way of style of play?
Yeah, one thing, especially with that Steph versus Sabrina competition, that the broadcasters play such a huge role in this. And when you have, I'm going to call him out, Kenny Smith, just go rambling on and on about how, she should be doing this, she should be doing that. This isn't really legitimate competition. that ruins it for the average viewer who is trying to get into this.
Great
And
point.
I'm sorry, it takes away from that. It weakens the product. And two, if you want to get to Kenny's point of like, oh, she should be shooting from the WNBA 3-point line. Guess what happened in the WNBA 3-point contest? She needed 11 to advance to the next round. She got 37. So, I mean, yeah, she could have done that. She had that option, but no, she decided to make it more of an even competition by shooting from the NBA 3-point line. She had a score that matched Damian Lillard and all the other top competitors. So yeah, she made the event as even as she could, but you had people like Kenny Smith ruin it, and you just had so many little things that really took away from it. And again, the other thing I just want to say is you get into the marketing of this, and this gets into the NBA dunk contest, which I'll say, right, they need to kill it. Take it out back. It needs to go. Because
Old Yeller.
You didn't. Oh, Scott, you talked about the average fans who are watching this. There's a huge international base that's watching this.
Yes.
You don't just have Obi. It's not Obi Toppin who's in this game. It's Obi Toppin's brother who's in the G League. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. If you're just going to have these random people and every dunk is going to be, oh, I'm going to dunk over the 6'5" person. I'm going to dunk over this TikToker in a chair. That's what no one's going to care about this. So yeah. And listen, NBA, I'm sure you're happy that allegedly your ratings were higher than they've been in 2 years, and 5.5 million viewers. I'll just tell you right now, this is the year where it went up, and after all these complaints, it's going to plummet because you're not going to do anything that's going to change. And next year, we're going to be looking at the numbers, this and be like, oh, this is legitimately dead. And I'm sorry, NBA, you need to kill this. Focus on the 3-point contest, the skills challenge. Hey, you can make that work, especially because you have 3 players from the team of the host city, and that gets the fan into it. And then, unless you don't have that, which we saw with the dunk contest, the fans didn't care at all. The announcers were going after it. Yeah, it's just not going to be a good entertainment product. And that's what we saw. And that's what you've made, NBA. Congrats to you.
Did they make the dunk contest like and one mixtape?
That's the only ones people care about.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown was in it. He was terrible.
Trampolines and go slam ball style.
I will say we have to give Jaylen Brown credit because after years of All-Stars not caring about this, he at least gave it a shot. Obviously, he was the only player who got booed, but you know what? I at least give him kudos because he was an all-star who said, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot, even though I may not win. Yes, his dunk sucked. Yes, he shouldn't advance to the next round, but at least he tried.
Yeah.
I give him no kudos. He was terrible. he embarrassed himself. And the fix was in. They were scoring his dunk so high, trying to get him to win, trying to save it from getting a bullet and put in his head. Like, come on, NBA. Terrible.
That's a New York guy saying that though, right? Because he's a Celtic. Okay. So, but yeah, no, listen, I agree. The dunk contest too is so far over because, when Michael Jordan was doing, even when Spud Webb was doing it, it was like, okay, those were marquee names and it made sense. Dominique Wilkins, you name it. So yeah, I just don't think it. But now we get past this. We'll see if they do anything, which I doubt that they will do. But one last point on the broadcaster perspective, and this isn't just to throw criticism, but it's so true because the storytelling was massive. And you said it too, Ryan, which is nobody got to know Sabrina. Nobody got to know if you wanted to be interested in the WNBA, nobody was given any information to say, hey, here's what she does in the WNBA. Here's the difference. Here's where she usually shoots from. Here's this, here's that. Here's where the game's different. So you can understand why shooting is even more important there. There was none of that. And so I think the NBA missed an opportunity to promote itself. But that's on them. So we'll see how it goes. Now, we get past this midpoint of the NBA season. Of course, the NBA trade deadline is going to be another thing coming up. You guys will be covering that, by the way. If you want to know anything about going on the NBA, these are some of the guys that will be covering it for you on sportsnaut.com. But any stories that you guys want to tell the audience out there to watch, whether it be trades, whether it be coaching moves in the NBA, I'll start with you on that one, Jason.
I mean, it's going to be interesting. More, I think one of the bigger stories is going to just what happens to the Lakers and the Warriors and how they finish. Yeah. They're at the bottom of the playoffs, heading into the second half, and those are big stories. And it's just the end of the big three era for the Warriors. How does the finish to the season with the Lakers affect LeBron's decision? Yeah, he's probably going to opt in for the $51 million, but maybe he doesn't. Now there's all this talk he does. They try. They even ponder the idea of trading him and see if he'd be interested in it. So I think that's got to be the big story since they're two of the biggest marquee brands. It's possibly a downfall for both of them. Maybe going to seasons where they're not the same next year. I'm definitely going to be looking at that heading into the second half.
Yeah, are you a Knicks fan?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Suffering expect. So I'm excited. I can't wait till they get healthy. We go into the finals.
Just my man, Miles McBride. That's the one Nick I root for. Went to my son's high school. Went to my son's high school here in Cincinnati. So, and he wears number 2, of course, which Larry Johnson used to wear. Anyway, see, I can bring everything back to UNLV. Matt, what about you? NBA storylines to watch over the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most excited for is seeing the Knicks and the Celtics choke in the playoffs. It's a tradition as old as time. And so that's the one thing that really brings it all home for me is when I can sit down on my TV. And for the Celtics, obviously, it'll probably be the Eastern Conference or NBA Finals where they'll get exposed and it'll all collapse for them. And there'll be finger pointing and all that. I'm looking for the Knicks. Obviously, it's going to be a second round because that's just how it's going to happen for them. It's a tradition. Even better than the Masters. The only other thing is, listen, the NBA playoffs, that's all that matters. Because we go back years, back when this was the Spurs dynasty, when, the NBA regular season didn't really matter to them, but they were the only team it didn't really matter to. And now we've reached that point for everyone else. So, yeah, it feels like teams like the Denver Nuggets, we're just seeing them coast. And then come playoff time, we'll see them pick it up.
Yeah. And Ryan, in Los Angeles, obviously, Jason mentioned the Lakers and LeBron and what's happening there. What's sort of the mood there? What are people really tuned into when it comes to Lakers basketball? Because, I mean, Lakers basketball will always, even in a bad year, it's huge in Los Angeles. So what's the feeling there?
Yeah, it's always funny being here because the Clippers are actually playing really well, but no one talks about the Clippers.
James Harden came on.
Yeah, Harden's playing well. The Clippers might actually be might be their best team since Lob City. They had, back almost a decade ago now, which is crazy. It's been that long. But yeah, the Lakers always talk the town. There's obviously a lot of frustration. I expect them to still maybe try to swing for the fences at the trade deadline, as Jason kind of mentioned, and give it one more run with this unit. And then, we'll see what happens with Bronny here at USC if the Lakers are able to get him to keep LeBron or if LeBron goes elsewhere, wherever his son Bronny goes. The other thing I'm looking at is, and this is more just pure speculation, but with KD and the Suns, KD's always linked somewhere going, and the Suns are this big 3 dynasty that's kind of fizzled out. I think they're 5th or 6th in the West right now, but I don't see them truly making a run. And there's ties to Jason's Knicks. So who knows if KD ends up in a Knicks uni and completes that, and maybe they can get past the second round with KD. Who knows? But,
we don't need him. We got this.
And then I always, I got to watch my Nuggets. So I agree with Matt. I think they're kind of just cruising right now and waiting for those playoffs. And, their GM, in my opinion, is one of the best in all the NBA. Their executive there, and, losing someone like Bruce Brown and what they're able to get in the offseason to complete kind of his role. And I think they're a really complete team. So we'll see. But yeah, Lakers are a mess. And even if they do swing for the fences, they're not doing anything. But last year they surprised everyone making the Western Conference Finals. So you never know.
You never know. That's why they play the games, at least when the players will play the games.
At least in May.
Yeah. There you go. All right. So that's this edition of Inside the Press Box, talking about the NBA All-Star Game and all things NBA. I want to thank Matt Johnson, Ryan Dyrud, and Jason Burgos for joining us. Make sure you join us all week. I mean, we're here every week, so we'll pick a subject and we'll talk to you about it. You get to hear from the editors and writers here at sportsnaut.com. Make sure you check out the website. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel here. Do us a favor, hit the thumbs up because, hey, we're cool. And number 2, make sure you hit the notifications bell. That way, every time we have a new video, guess what? You're going to be the first to find out. So we appreciate it. For everybody here at Sportsnaut, have a great rest of your week.